Welcome to today's episode of Spelling Bee Ninja, where we explore the essentials of learning English. In this episode, we'll delve into a fundamental aspect of the language that affects how we communicate, the active and passive voice. Understanding these two forms is crucial for clear expression in both spoken and written English. So, whether you're preparing for exams or just looking to enhance your language skills, stick around as we unpack these important concepts. Let's start by defining what active and passive voice actually are. In English, the active voice is when the subject of the sentence performs the action. For example, take the sentence, "The chef cooked the meal." Here, the chef is the subject doing the cooking. On the other hand, passive voice flips this structure around. Instead of emphasizing who is doing the action, it focuses on what is being done to the subject. An example would be, "The meal was cooked by the chef." Notice how the focus shifts from the chef to the meal itself. This subtle change in focus can greatly affect the tone and clarity of your communication. One common reason for using passive voice is when the doer of the action is unknown or unimportant. For instance, if we say, "A mistake was made," we highlight the mistake rather than who made it. It's essential to recognize when to use each voice to convey your message most effectively. Now, let's take a moment to look at how we can form passive sentences. Often, we do this by using a form of the verb to be followed by the past participle of the main verb. So, let's break this down with an example. "They will build a new school." To convert this into passive voice, we first identify the object, a new school, which will become the subject of our new sentence. Then, we incorporate the correct form of to be, and finally, the past participle of build, which is built. This gives us, a new school will be built by them. Understanding this construction unlocks the ability to express the same idea in different ways, which can be particularly useful in various contexts. Another fascinating aspect is how passive voice can lend a level of formality to your writing. In academic or professional settings, you might find it more appropriate to use passive constructions. This is often seen in scientific writing, where the focus is on the findings rather than the researcher. For example, instead of saying, "The scientist discovered a new protein," the passive construction would be, "A new protein was discovered." This emphasizes the discovery itself, which may be what the audience is more interested in. However, it's also important to remember that overusing passive voice can lead to ambiguity and a lack of clarity. This is where the balance comes into play. For effective communication, consider your audience and the message you want to deliver. If clarity and directness are your goals, active voice is often the way to go. If you wish to place emphasis on the action or the recipient of the action instead, then passive voice could be your choice. Confusion can arise when one tries to mix the two voices or incorrectly transforms sentences. For instance, saying "the project was completed by the students" is correct passive voice. However, turning an active sentence into passive voice incorrectly, like "the students was completed by the project," demonstrates a misunderstanding of the construction. Always check to ensure your sentences maintain grammatical integrity after transformation. To practice distinguishing between the two voices, consider this: identify the subject, verb, and object in sentences you encounter. Ask yourself whether the subject is acting or being acted upon. This skill will not only help you in transforming sentences but also in improving your comprehension of the texts you read. Additionally, consider examples in your daily life or media. How often do you encounter the active versus passive voice? The more you recognize these patterns, the better you will become at using them appropriately. Remember, the aim is to improve your clarity and ensure that your audience understands your message. In conclusion, mastering active and passive voice is essential for any English learner. It enhances your ability to express thoughts succinctly and clearly. Keep practicing the forms and pay attention to how they shift meaning and focus in what you read and write. Every bit of practice you undertake gets you one step closer to fluency. Today, we've explored the concepts of active and passive voice in English. We learned that the active voice emphasizes the subject performing the action, while the passive voice highlights the action itself and its recipient. By understanding how to convert sentences from one form to the other, we enhance our communication skills. Remember to consider your audience and the context of your message when choosing which voice to use. With continued practice, these concepts will become second nature, further aiding your journey in mastering the English language. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spelling Bee Ninja. We hope you found this discussion on active and passive voice insightful and helpful. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we look forward to seeing you next time as we explore more fascinating aspects of the English language. Until then, happy learning!